What's going on, everybody? This is Renegade Number One, aka the Feminist Killer, hashtag Logitorian. Today's video is going to be about understanding death, accepting death, through the black pill lens. And the first thing I will say is, we've been taught and conditioned, obviously through media, through movies, through television, through other people's opinions, that death is this grim process. It's end all be all. It's the end of the world. It's terrible. It's a terrible feeling that you endure. People threaten you with death, like it's something to be afraid of. But all of that comes from the lack of not understanding. And my thing is, the fear of death is for people who don't understand death. It's a process. It's kind of like, okay, like how people are prejudiced towards another. You see a person walking across the street who looks a certain way. All of a sudden, you develop this fear of that person due to the fact that you don't know them. But once you talk to that person, you understand how they are, that fear goes away. And it's the same thing with death. Death, you're afraid of what happens to you after you die. You get anxiety thinking about it. But once you understand how the process works and you understand that it's natural, you're okay with it. You don't give a fuck. And so the idea is to desensitize yourself. You develop a high tolerance for pain and suffering and getting an understanding of it. And so really, my whole point of making this video is for you to understand that death does not have to be a scary experience at all. It's all a mental thing. And so the first thing you got to understand is you're conditioned to see death, like I said, as a tragedy. There's two ways you can look at death. You can look at it as a tragedy, or you can look at it as a triumph. At the end of the day, it's going to happen. But I think for people who look at death in a negative view, like most people, they typically value the third dimension. They value the physical world, which is also known as the third dimension. If you're trying to make it to that fifth dimension, which is, again, because most people they keep asking me, what is the fifth dimension? What is the fifth dimension? The fifth dimension, at least in my eyes, is, and I've been saying this for years now, the fifth dimension is the outer world. It's the world beyond the physical world. It's the world where we're not held back by our bodies. We're not held back by any restrictions, right? And so why do I skip over the fourth dimension? The fourth dimension is it's a short-lived process. It's so short-lived that you don't even experience it at all. That's how quick and easy the fourth dimension is. That's the period from after you die towards you getting to the outer world. That's the fourth dimension. But anyway, for those who value the physical world, you value money, status, you value everything, cars. You can't take none of that shit with you. College degrees, titles, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. At the end of the day, death doesn't give a fuck if you're any of those things, because you're going to go right under the ground just like everybody else. And so it's very important for you to understand death, not to fear death. Most people are taught to fear death. And see, the thing is, they don't want you they don't want you not to fear death. They don't want you to understand death. That's why you've been programmed to fear death. The thing is, death is part of the process. Death is part of the metamorphosis, right? And so when you look at, for example, when you look at the caterpillar, right? Before the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, the caterpillar just doesn't go to sleep. The caterpillar actually dies. It dies before it's reborn. And the point that I'm trying to make is, in order for you to be reborn, in order for you to have that growth, you have to die, right? Everybody has to die. You have to embrace it too. And so that's not just spiritually, that's also physically. I'm talking about right now, you have to embrace death. If you died today or tomorrow or the next day after that, you should be okay with that. If you got cancer, if you got some type of physical illness and you're going to die in 6 months, don't feel bad. You should feel happy. You know, people are saying, oh, God bless you. No, fuck God. God isn't going to get you nowhere. I don't need your fucking blessings. That's what you can tell these motherfuckers. It's only the NPCs, like I said, the people that don't fucking get death that have that mindset. Oh, you know, you're living out your few days. No. I'm proud to be gone. I won't ever have to come back to this fucked up matrix. And that's how you should look at death. You know, if you're faced with death, embrace it. Invite death in. If death is knocking on your door, don't just ignore the knocks. Don't just ignore the rings. Open the door and let that motherfucker in. Say, come on and sit down. Come on in and sit down and have a drink. Have a seat. Invite death in. I love it. Embrace it. That's the black pill mindset. We don't run from anything. We don't run from the truth. At the end of the day, nobody is immortal. Nobody physically is immortal. And it's very important for you to gain a more realistic perspective on life. If you don't have a realistic perspective on life, you won't be able to accept or be able to endure anything. You're always going to be trying to cope in unhealthy ways. You're always going to be trying to be looking for people to patronize you with bullshit positivity. No, at the end of the day, death is natural. You understand? It's natural. How is it that we're taught to fear something that's natural? Like I said, look at winter, right? In the wintertime, which is where we're at now, in the wintertime, everything dies. The trees die, the grass dies. But after death, it's followed up with a season of spring. Everything is reborn again. So though your physical body dies, you're going to leave your body and you're going to be reborn into another world or another dimension, aka the fifth dimension. That's why I say death is not truly the end. We've been taught to think that. It's not. You're not going to no heaven. You're not going to no hell or none of that other bullshit that mankind has came up with. Oh, if you don't believe in this, you're going to hell. That's a bunch of bullshit. The real hell is earth. Hell is earth. Hell is on earth. Dealing with people is on earth. Human beings have always been their own worst enemy. The devil, Lucifer, you want to talk about that? That's within people. That's all it is to it. But at the end of the day, death is not an enemy. Death should not be feared. And so, obviously, death is a transformation. And before you do your transformation, you got to understand the transformation. Again, if you don't value sex, if you don't value attention, if you don't value money, then you won't give a fuck about this physical world. I fucking hate the third dimension, which is this world that we live in. And so you'll look forward to death more often than most people who value that shit. Again, people who are holding on to things that are superficial, you can't take superficial shit with you. Another thing is death, like I said, you have to go through death to get to the next life. All death is a portal. That's all it is a portal to the next world. And on that other side of the portal, we may not know entirely what's on that other side, but it's very important to know that it's not going to be that the stuff that everybody tells you it is. And so death doesn't have to be there doesn't have to be a dark negative connotation associated with death. You understand? There does not have to be a negative dark connotation associated with death. It's bullshit. Um, Again, when you see children dying, when you see old people in the bed dying, don't feel bad for them. They won't be suffering. That's the thing. We've been taught, like I said, to think that that's bad, but it's not. When I see a child die, I'm fucking happy for that child. They're leaving a world of suffering. When I see an old lady or old man die, they are leaving this world and they're going to a better, a better dimension, right? And that's all that is. We got to welcome death. Don't lie to somebody and say, oh, death is bad. People who are lying to you and telling you death is a terrible process, those are people that want you to fear and they don't want you to understand. Those are usually the elites that do that shit to you. The same people that program you, in education to think a certain way. These people are teaching you to think a certain way. They're trying to manipulate your emotions. Don't allow people to manipulate you emotionally. Tell you to think something. They try to tell you what to feel, how to feel. No, fuck that. Look at things objectively. But in order for you to accept and understand death in the objective lens that you're supposed to look at it as, you have to go beyond your ego, right? You have to go beyond your ego, which is your individuality. If you cannot leave your individuality behind, you will never understand the world beyond. You will never understand the world beyond the physical, right? You have to go beyond yourself. You are not important. You are just another part of bacteria on Earth. You are nobody. You cannot win the rat race. You have nothing to contribute physically to this world anymore. You cannot save these people. They're already dead. How can you help somebody who's already dead? Most of these people will never understand you. Most people don't have the drive to seek consciousness or to seek true understanding because they're too busy caught up in things that don't matter, their everyday lives, trying to make their status better, trying to get a title, trying to brag about something that's superficial. None of that shit matters. Don't dedicate your time to irrelevant stuff. Another thing that I have gathered is this exercise called Tantra, which is exercising the life force, right? That's something that you should get into. It's called Tantra, Tantra. And basically, understand this, there will always be growth after death. Understand that. Which means, how could I break this down? Death is not going to be the ending. There's another side to death. There's always going to be a continuation. It's a metamorphosis. This right now, as human beings, as Homo sapiens, in our physical bodies right now, we are in our caterpillar stage, right? And so we have to die to become the butterfly, whatever that may be. I don't know what our other shape will be, but we're going to shapeshift into another creature or another being. We don't know what it is, but it won't be back on this planet. You understand? We've been conditioned to think that reincarnation is a good thing. No, reincarnation is hell. Why would you want to come back to this fucked up planet? Why would you want your memory erased just to live the same life that you just lived in this life? And like I was telling a brother a few days ago, who knows? We probably already came back to life over and over again. This is probably the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th time we've been back on Earth. We just don't fucking remember. I was probably an old Chinese man. I was probably an old Asian man in the last life. I don't remember. You understand? You don't know what you were. You don't know if you've been back or not. And if you have been back, make this the last fucking time. You know, understand and embrace death. Like I said, I have no pity for children dying. I have no pity for anybody dying. Death is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. If you view death as a bad thing, you have been brainwashed. You have been conditioned to think that way. You understand? I was actually doing some research, and this guy who's had a near-death experience, NDE, he had a near-death experience, and he said it was therapeutic. It gave him a jolting experience on life and a different perspective. So the guy was saying that if you have a near-death experience, you start to channel different energies and different perspectives on life. You know, I've had a near-death experience when I was 11, you know, but I would have to say I need another near-death experience. I want more of it. But again, man, a lot of people project their fears onto other people by telling them what to fear and what not to fear, you know. Regardless of what type of death you experience, whether you're burned up in a fire, whether you have your head cut the fuck off, or whether you die in your sleep, whether you commit suicide, you hang, death is not going to be painful at all. You got to understand, death is instantaneous. Unless you're being tortured alive, you won't experience pain when you die. Period. You know, that's something that I have accepted and I understand. I have no fucking fear of death. That's what I want you guys to take away from this video. You don't need to fear death. Why fear? Ask yourself this question. Why fear a process that's natural? It's going to come anyway. Think about it. When you decompose, you're feeding the next life. After death, there's rebirth. Understand that. It's called death passage. Death passage is an internal transformation, right? It's a rebirth stage. You're going to go through a death passage. And then you're going to go on. You live, to be honest with you, when I think about it, you can't fucking die. We can't die. It's impossible for us to die. It's impossible. When your physical body dies, you're still going to be alive. You're going to come back to life after that. Think about it. Birth, death, rebirth. Birth, death, rebirth. Birth, death, rebirth. Basically, death is an intermission. Again, I'll say that again. Death is an intermission. That's all it is. Death is not a termination. It's not permanent. It's temporary. And then you go into your next life, into the next dimension. You keep living forever. You're to be honest with you, I know I said none of us are immortal, but I'm actually wrong about that. We are immortal, technically. When it comes to Earth, when it comes to Earth and being a Homo sapien, okay, then we're mortal. We're not immortal in that regard. But when it comes to our spirits, you know, when it comes to us, we're going to live forever, regardless of what type of body we're in, regardless of what type of dimension we're in. We're always going to be alive. We're traveling all the time. And so that's something that you definitely need to understand. But yeah, man, that's something that, as a black pillar, you have to gain perspective on. You have to, you know, start looking at things in an objective lens, not looking in things in a subjective lens, the way you want it to be. You know, some of you may look at, you know, life as an oyster and you're just getting started and you got so much to deliver here while you're on Earth. But if you're in your 20s, if you're in your teens and you happen to die at this particular junction in your life, don't complain and say, oh man, you know, he was so young. He had so much to deliver. No, he fucking didn't. He had nothing to contribute but babies and work. That's the funny thing about life. We're only here for reproducing. We're only here to work to keep humanity alive for the next hundreds of years. We're going to do the same shit as every other human. Reproduce, work, and then fucking die. That's it. We have no other significance to this fucking planet. So don't sit there and tell people that they got something special to deliver to the planet. We don't. We don't have shit. I'm not shit. You're not shit. We're just particles taking up space. You understand? So it's very important for you, like I said, to understand death as a process. Understand that death is a transition. Understand that death is an intermission. That's all it is. It's nothing to be afraid of. You know, anybody that tries to intimidate you with death, tell them you ain't afraid to fucking die. All you're doing is transforming my body into another dimension, into another physical entity. That's it. Somebody point a gun at you. Who gives a fuck? You gonna kill me? You can't kill me. You can't kill us. You can't kill the black pill ideology. You understand? All you're gonna do is shapeshift. You can never fucking die. That's the beauty behind this shit. And you know, when I was blue pilled, I thought death was the end. I thought I was just gonna fade into darkness. But I thought, like I was telling a brother a few hours ago, I thought when we died, nothing would happen. Nothing. But what you guys got to understand is, and what I had to understand was, there is no such thing as nothing. Nothing is something. Nothing is something. You can't die and nothing can just happen. You understand? There's always going to be another process to it. Something has to follow up. You can't just be in a dormant stage. You understand? You can't be dormant after death. There has to be something. And like I said, I'll go back to the seasons, right? You got winter, and then after winter is the dead season, right? It's the season of death. But after death, it's spring, which is the season of rebirth. Then you got summer, which is the season of life, and you're living out your life. And then you go back to fall. You're starting to, wind down, and then you die again. And then after you die again, then you're reborn again. Then after you're reborn again, you live out your life, and then, you die again. And then after you die again, then you're reborn again. You see what I'm saying? So it's an incessant cycle. You understand? The same leaves are going to be here. The same leaves that you just saw die, and the same trees you just saw die, they're going to be back next fucking summer. You understand? Because they can't die. It's the beauty behind it. Everything is immortal. But that's something that you guys have to understand, is that we are on an endless cycle. An endless cycle. Mortal death. This is the thing. In order for you to experience more growth, you got to go through the death of your ego. And again, I'm not going to spill all over the ego again, because I talked about it. But get out of your own fucking way. The reason why you're not growing is because you're in your own way. Your ego is. Again, the black pill is not just about female nature. We're beyond that. It's about accepting the things that hold us back, accepting the world that you're in, understanding every dynamic of the world, government, politics, understanding rituals, understanding cults, understanding corruption, understanding the elites and what they're meant to do, understanding that the world around you is actually not the world around you. You understand? The world around you, the world you've been told, the thoughts, the beliefs, the culture you live, the skin color, where you live, none of that shit fucking matters. Your college degree, none of that shit fucking matters. No one gives a fuck. Especially when you take this black pill. Realize that. But this is Renegade number 1. Like the video, share, subscribe. Peace.